Hi everyone, it's Nicole and welcome back to my channel. Today I am sharing with you project number 1 in my paper tray series 2, and it's going to focus around on this piece of paper here and all of these words. When I had put this tray together for this piece, my heart was set on fussy cutting all of these words out and creating it into a rainbow shape and adding a little bit of mixed media behind it. And I'm so glad that I took the time to fussy cut these because it executed perfectly on how I had it in my mind. So what you're seeing me do here is I took two 8.5 by 11 sheets of printer paper, just to use like scrap paper and not like some good white cardstock. And I taped it together and cut it down to what ended up being 11 by 12, which is totally fine. So what I'm doing is sketching out a larger rainbow, and I'll use like the letters to measure the distances or the thickness of the lines to make sure that I've got it. So this is what it looks like. And then from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it down arc by arc, so to speak, and use this as a template for some splatters. And that's where my little bit of mixed media comes in. It's not a whole lot, so if you're intimidated by mixed media, I think this is a good place to start because it is just splatters, nothing more. So I'm going to go ahead and lay this out. I'm going to leave the large outside, and then there's that first big ring there that I lined everything up with, but I'm going to eventually move that. But before I do, I'm getting my shimmers paints ready. These are the inklings. And these you have to pre-wet with water to kind of activate them. So that's what I did. So I'm going to do one arch teal, one arch red, one arch pink. The largest one is going to be teal. So I use my gloss sprays to do a little bit of splattering on the large arch. I just moved that large piece that I fussy cut out of that scrap paper, that template piece. And then I used that as basically the template to do the splattering for that. And then I'm going to take the little bit of the different blue color here and go around through that same thing. What I'll do next is start removing and cutting more and more of the layers as I get the closer into the rainbow. But the purpose of this is so that the teal was only landing on that specific section of the arch. So I had that large piece, and then you can see I cut out a little piece there. That is the gap, so to speak. That's going to be the gap. So I'm going to take that original large teal one that I cut, put that back on so that's protected and no other color goes over it. Add in that little tiny strip because that is a white barrier that I want to have a break. And then I'm going to tape this down onto each other so that it doesn't move. And then I'm going to remove that next big arch. I don't know if I'm overcomplicating this. I probably am. There could be very well easier ways to do this out there. This is just how my head saw it, and this is just how I ran with it. So this middle arch, what I did was take the red paints that I had. It was a shimmers red, and you know what? I can't remember the colors offhand that I used, but I will leave the color names and links to them down in the description below if those links and products are still available. But either way, I'll still put the names. So that middle one just ended up being just the red. So I went and did some heavy because I bumped it a little bit, and I saw that they kind of like, they dissipated a bit. So I went back in with some larger splatters. And then lastly, for the third arch, I do cover the red up with that piece. And I will do another little piece as my white barrier. And then this last arch will be my pink. And I use another scrap piece to cover up the teal because I don't want the pink to go on the teal, but I kind of ruined that piece of the template, so I couldn't use that whole thing all over again. So for this little inside part, I am going to do this glossy pink. And then I'm going to add in this shimmers, like this berry color pink on top of that as well. And this is going to, it's super sped up, but I felt that it was really important so that you could see how everything came together. But I absolutely love how this turned out. And it was like this aha moment when it was the full reveal of every layer coming off. The white spaces were there where they were supposed to be, and every arch was the color that I wanted it to. And it was just like, yes, like complete thumbs up, got it. It was exactly how I saw it in my head, and that's what I went with. So on to the next part, which was some time consuming a little bit. I had cut all of these out off of that paper that you saw in the beginning. The large arch, what I had originally thought was to take these and go over the mixed media. Well, I didn't like how much it ended up covering of it. So what I did, what I'll do here eventually is I'll start shifting these towards the red, and I'm going to fill in that white space between the teal and the red, and then that's how this arch is going to go. So this arch was the row on that paper that was nothing but X's and O's. And this was probably the quickest to fussy cut out because the X's were easy, and I used a 3/4 inch circle punch on the O's. It did leave a little bit of a white border, but it wasn't enough that it was too much. So I highly recommend, if you want to do this, pull out a 3/4 inch circle punch and give it a whirl. I think that it worked pretty well. So I'm going to go ahead now and start lining up the middle row. The middle row is the line that says, "You make my heart sing." So I'm getting in one full row of that sentiment in that half circle. And then up at the top here where it's saying, I do have the little heart. There's a heart period that came with this, but I didn't put it on here. I didn't want to lose it, so I had it sitting aside. But I tried to fit in a second one, and it wasn't going to fit. And I knew I wanted my picture to be on this right side. So what I ended up doing was just finishing the sentence and kind of working backwards so that at the very bottom it said "sing" with that other heart period. And it almost looks like that it was intentional in the very end once the photographs are laid over top of it. But really it is just the word "you" and "sing" for that last piece, and that was it. The final row is "Love You More," and I do think I fit 1.5 of this one. Again, I did one full complete of that sentence on the left side, and then I did the second one, but I did "love you," and then I worked backwards with "more" just to get that down. So this was the pain in the butt part. I only used a tiny dot of adhesive the whole way around these because my final thought was to run this whole thing through my sewing machine, which I do, and fluff up the edges of it. So I'm going to take the time running this through my sewing machine, and if you saw right there, I went straight through that open space just like that. I left it go. I left it continue on because once the photographs go on, you want it to look like it's a continuation. So I had these two photographs pulled out. One was of my husband and I, the other one was of our pup. I wasn't sure in the beginning which one I wanted to do, so I had them both. What I did notice, though, as I was doing this, is there were some black elements in these letters that were not being picked up otherwise. So what I chose to do was cut some of the white background off of this and use this black and white polka dot paper that I had sitting in another tray for another project. But I went ahead and just used it for this one because what I'm going to do is just gut it anyways. I like the cassettes that are on the other side of this, and my intention was to fussy cut some of the cassettes if I had needed. So I'm going to go ahead and gut it, and then I'll put that inside gut piece back with that tray that I had for that layout. So on this one, all I'm going to do is go ahead and layer this down. I think it looks so much better. I am going to glue it first, but I will take this back in and run this part through my sewing machine as well. Since I did the sewing machine on the inside of the arches, I just thought that it would complete it. It would add that little bit of texture that it needed, and that I will do a zigzag stitch for instead of a straight line stitch. So this is where I decided that I was going to go with this one picture of my puppers. He is an absolute doll. He is a baby still. He loves helping with dishes, and before he gets too chunky that he can't sit on my dishwasher and help me pre-rinse anymore, I took a picture of this to keep because it was so stinking cute. It is the same picture. One is a larger overview and the other one is just a close-up. But they are the same picture, and I do like to scrap this because then you can see the whole idea and then you get the close-up of him. So it's a good way to have multiple photos with a far away and a close-up. So I am going to use some large foam adhesive for on the back of these to pop them up off the page. I do trim it down on the smaller one because I know they were going to overlap, but before I really finally glue anything down, this is where I start to fuss with some of the embellishments, and I get that those two large ones I wanted to use, but like I said, before I glue anything down, I am going to run this through a zigzag stitch, and you can see there I'm catching the white and the black paper. It's just going to run it right along the white edge. And then I'm going to go ahead and start really getting everything down. So this bottom, I'm going to use Hello Love as my title. There is a larger XOXO that I will use for up at the top. But before I go any further, I wanted some of this color to be broken up a bit. So to add to that, I used my white glossy sprays and added a loads of white glossy splatters all over this to help break up some of that color. I do cover up my photos so that none of that gets ruined. I end up getting a little bit on there, but it does come straight off. So the Hello Love's going to go ahead and live back down there, and then the XOXO is going to go ahead up at the top. And then I'm going to go ahead and start pulling in some of the other pieces that I had laid out for this spread. I had a lot of chipboard hearts that I had pulled off of that 12 by 12 chipboard sheet. And then I also had a few rainbows, and those were really the inspiration of all of this. So I wanted to make sure that they ended up on this page as well. So when I started laying out some of the chipboards around the frames or around the photos, I wanted to bring it in another element of these chipboard hearts somewhere else on the page. I felt that everything all around the photos didn't give it the look that I was going for, but I felt like it needed something else. So I do fuss a lot with each of these pieces. The Hello Love white heart, I love how that was that white on white, tone on tone, and then that rainbow just ended up there, and I went with it. I liked how that little cluster was building, and then I had forgotten I had these pulled out to go with this. Now this was another piece that took a pretty long time to do, but it was so worth it in the end. These are washi strips, but I chose to fussy cut the scallop piece of these whenever I pulled them off, and then I'm actually going to take them and lift the edges of my letters for my words around the rainbow, and I'm going to tuck pieces of these under each of these letters, and it ends up looking so cool. I do a pink one here. I will use teal around the outside XOXO ring of the rainbow, and then I will also use the yellow around the Love You More ring. As I do this, I go around and I lift up as much as I can of the different letters. Some of them don't come up because they were glued down in those places. Other ones pop up perfectly fine. Either way, they're stitched on at this point. So it's just that nice added lift to give a little bit more shadow and dimension in this spread. So here I'm going in and adding in the yellow scalloped underneath the You More. And then, like I said, I do add in the teal around the edge there, you can see. And I do stagger it so that they're not on the same sections of the rainbow. I felt like that added more to the rainbow, that it complemented everything that I had going thus far. So this is where I go in and start to finalize where I'm putting everything. And where the chipboards are now is where, for the most part, they're going to end up being. I do try to fuss with this XOXO, and to be honest, I don't think that it makes it on the final layout. But if it does, hold on, let me look. I'm not sure if it fits. Oh yeah, it does stay. It does stay. It was that red heart that didn't make it. So this is where I start that other cluster. I do end up putting it over there where that black and white striped heart is. I tuck it underneath the letters that are popped up though, so that it doesn't take away from these sayings that I took forever to cut out. So I end up with those, and then I flick through some of the embellishments that I did not assign to any specific kit. I found that little word strip that said adorable, thought that it went perfectly. So I went ahead and stuck that there, and then I found this little tab set, and I thought it was perfect because it brought in another element of black and white. But I only just trimmed off half of it, leaving the other half for another layer. And then I also do end up trimming off a little strip of the black and white diagonal there. It was just too much to go up there, but I'm not going to throw it away. I'm going to go ahead and add that tab up to the top of that photo, and then I'm going to use that piece as kind of like an anchor or a base layer for my right photo. And then it's that diagonal too, so it was a nice grounding piece that tied into that. So I'm going to go ahead and take some time, pull off the backing to my foam adhesive. I really struggle with this foam adhesive getting the backing off, and most of the time I end up taking the adhesive with it. So I do have to use a little bit of glue to reinforce it down, but that's okay. That's foam in and of itself. So we're going to go ahead and permanently put the XOXO there, add on the first rainbow chipboard with the heart up above there on that top right photo. And then I'll go ahead and start pulling the backings off of the rest of these. Again, leaving this white one. I love that tone on tone white. I like that solid middle part of the rainbow that was left white. It's almost like everything was so busy it needed that space for your eye to rest. So that white chipboard heart, I felt complemented it perfectly. The rainbow there with the blue center is going to stay on top of that photo, and then I am going to overlap my Hello Love for my title over top of that to help break that down just a little bit. I do use that red heart right in the center there. I think it filled in that gap nicely. And this is where I take that XOXO off, thinking I wasn't sure if I was going to use it or not, but I do end up putting it there again because I like that white tone on tone. So this point, I'm going to go ahead and work on this top cluster. I try to stick with the smaller hearts for the top two there and just set that one aside. So of all the chipboard hearts and rainbows that I chose for this layout, there was only one of the chipboard hearts that I didn't use. And I only used a little less than half of a sheet of that pattern paper, and then I gutted the second piece. So there's really, you can do a lot with just 2 pieces of paper and a little bit of embellishments whenever you pull in some mixed media sprays and your sewing machines and create templates and arcs like this. So if you have a collection that you love, that you only have a few bits and pieces left over, this is one great way to stretch what is left to get an awesome spread out of what you have left. To finish some of this up, I do think this is the last piece that I add on to this, and this was the enamel shapes that came in the kit, and on here there were a lot of small hearts, and they were in yellow and red and teal and black, and I thought they were the perfect finishing touch to add in other little tiny pops of color in some of these empty spaces that I thought needed something. So I do add a red one and a black one there. I will find room for a yellow. I think that pulls in some of that scallop border, and then some of the blue. And then I do add a couple in that cluster over on the left-hand side. I do believe it ends up being a red one, possibly another black one, and maybe a pink. And then the little pink one goes on that right rainbow. And I think I used all of the little hearts off of that sheet. It worked out perfectly, and it was the perfect little touch at the end. Oh, I do find this little ampersand that was in the die cut pieces, and I did not have it, and it was another black and white element, and I thought that it was perfect to add on to that little banner sentiment that said adorable. I do grab my date stamp and I add it right below the bottom right photo there. And then lastly for this piece, I'm going to add in my journaling. I don't have a whole lot to journal, so I'm just going to stick it right down here on the bottom. And I'm just going to talk about what our pup was doing and how he likes being our new pre-rinse cycle for our dishwasher since he has started living with us. And then that is going to call the end of project number 1 for Paper Tray series 2. So I have another one in the works. I will be back again soon with another layout, and I hope you have been inspired with this one to get creating. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Please hit that subscribe button, and everyone, thanks so much for all of the thumbs up. It really helps out my channel, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, thanks and have a great day. Bye.